"This isn't a real one," the waitress whispered in perfect Italian. "Saved a billionaire." From a scam, what if a single whispered phrase in a foreign language could save someone's entire fortune and change two lives forever? In the bustling heart of Chicago's Little Italy, where the aroma of garlic and basil dances through narrow streets, 67-year-old Vincent Castellano sat alone at a corner table, his weathered hands trembling as he stared at the documents spread before him. The man who'd built a shipping empire from nothing was about to lose everything to people he'd trusted completely. His gray eyes, once sharp as steel, now clouded with confusion and desperate hope as he reached for his phone to make the call that would transfer his life's work to strangers. But just as his finger hovered over the screen, a gentle voice with the softest Italian accent whispered near his ear, "Signore, questo non è reale." This isn't real. The young woman who served his coffee every Tuesday had just spoken words that would unravel the most sophisticated con he'd ever encountered. "Where are you watching from tonight?" Vincent had discovered Nonna's Cafe 3 months earlier, drawn by its authentic Italian atmosphere that reminded him of his grandmother's kitchen in Brooklyn. The place felt like stepping back in time, with checkered tablecloths, vintage photographs of Sicily, and the gentle chatter of elderly patrons sharing stories over espresso. It was here he'd first noticed Lucia Moretti, a 34-year-old waitress whose genuine smile could brighten the gloomiest Chicago morning. She'd emigrated from Naples just 2 years ago, working tirelessly to support her elderly mother back home while studying for her nursing degree at night. What Vincent didn't know was that Lucia had been watching him with growing concern these past weeks. She'd noticed how his usual confident demeanor had given way to worry lines and sleepless nights. The man who once commanded boardrooms now sat hunched over papers, making hushed phone calls about wire transfers and investment opportunities that sounded too good to be true. Her broken English prevented her from voicing her concerns, but her intuition screamed that something was terribly wrong. The elaborate scam had begun 6 months earlier when Vincent received a call from someone claiming to represent a European shipping consortium. They'd done their homework perfectly, knowing details about his business, his late wife Maria's charity work, even his grandchildren's names. The scammers painted a picture of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to expand his legacy while helping refugee families find new homes through shipping partnerships. It was exactly the kind of humanitarian angle that would appeal to a man who'd never forgotten his own immigrant roots. They'd slowly built his trust through months of professional meetings, forged documents and emotional stories. The fake investors even arranged video calls with actors posing as grateful families who would supposedly benefit from his investment. Vincent's loneliness after Maria's passing had made him vulnerable to their carefully crafted friendship and promises of meaningful purpose in his golden years. Now, sitting in the cafe with transfer papers for $12 million, Vincent felt both excited and terrified. His financial advisor had expressed concerns, but the scammers had convinced him that traditional advisors couldn't understand such innovative charitable investments. As he prepared to make the call that would empty his primary accounts, destiny was about to intervene in the form of a waitress who recognized danger when she heard it. Lucia had been refilling Vincent's coffee when she overheard him practicing his phone conversation in broken Italian, trying to impress his supposed European partners. Her blood ran cold as she recognized the phrases he was rehearsing. Growing up in Naples, she'd watched her own uncle fall victim to a similar scam that had cost their family their small restaurant. The tactics were identical: the promise of helping refugees, the humanitarian angle, the pressure to act quickly before the opportunity disappeared. Her heart pounded as she watched Vincent dial the number. She knew she had to act, but her limited English made her panic. How could she explain such a complex situation to a man she barely knew? Taking a deep breath, she approached his table with a fresh pot of coffee, her hands shaking slightly as she leaned in close enough to whisper without others hearing. "Signore, questo non è reale," she said softly in Italian, then switched to her best English. "This not real. Very bad people." Vincent looked up, startled by her serious tone and the unexpected intervention. His finger still hovered over the call button as confusion washed over his face. "I'm sorry, miss, but you must be mistaken," Vincent replied politely, though something in her earnest brown eyes made him hesitate. These are legitimate business people helping refugee families. Lucia's eyes filled with tears as she struggled to find the English words. My uncle in Napoli, same story, same words. They take everything. She pointed to his papers with a trembling finger. These papers I see before. In Italy, police they show us after Uncle Lou's restaurant. Vincent felt his world tilting as he looked at the documents with fresh eyes. The young woman's obvious distress and specific knowledge began penetrating his carefully constructed certainty. But they knew so much about my business, my family. Bad people, they study you. They know everything before they call. Lucia pulled out her phone, quickly searching for an Italian news article about international scam rings. Though Vincent couldn't read Italian, the photos of official-looking documents eerily similar to his own made his stomach drop. If this moment touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up. Vincent's entire body went rigid as the terrible possibility crashed over him like a cold wave. Everything he'd believed, every conversation, every promise, suddenly felt hollow and sinister. But was it too late? The transfer deadline was in 3 hours, and these people expected his call within minutes. His phone buzzed with an incoming text. Vincent, are you ready to change lives today? Vincent's hands shook as he read the text message, the friendly tone now feeling manipulative and predatory. The weight of his potential loss hit him like a physical blow. $12 million represented not just his savings, but his grandchildren's college funds, his late wife's medical charity, and the security he'd promised his family. The thought of facing his son David and daughter-in-law Catherine with news that he'd lost everything to con artists felt unbearable. I feel so foolish, Vincent whispered, his voice cracking with shame. Maria always said I was too trusting. How could I be so blind? The proud man who'd built an empire was now hunched over his coffee cup like a broken bird, the weight of his mistake threatening to crush him. Lucia immediately sat down beside him, her shift forgotten as she witnessed this decent man's anguish. No, signore. You're not foolish. You have a good heart. They are devils who use good hearts. Her broken English somehow made her words more powerful, more genuine. She told him about her Uncle Giuseppe, how the scammers had used his desire to help fellow immigrants against him, how they'd studied his routines and relationships for months before striking. Vincent's phone rang. The caller ID showed Alessandro Romano, his main contact with the supposed consortium. Lucia grabbed his wrist gently but firmly. No answer. We think first. Her courage in protecting a near stranger touched something deep in Vincent's heart, reminding him of Maria's fierce protectiveness. As they sat there, Lucia called her friend Isabella, who worked at the Italian consulate, explaining the situation in rapid Italian. Within minutes, Isabella confirmed what they feared. No such shipping consortium existed in Europe, and Vincent's documents matched templates used by known international scammers. The devastating truth crystallized completely. Vincent had been living in an elaborate fantasy for 6 months, his grief and loneliness expertly manipulated by professional criminals. The investors he'd grown to trust didn't exist. The refugee families were actors. Even the office address in Rome was fake. But as Vincent processed his narrow escape, he felt something unexpected alongside his shock. Profound gratitude for this young woman who'd risked her job to save him. "Why did you help me?" he asked Lucia. "You barely know me." Her answer was simple and beautiful. "Because someone helped my family once when we had nothing. Good people, they help. Have you ever faced something like this? Let us know in the comments." Vincent realized that while he'd almost lost his fortune, he'd gained something equally valuable: faith that genuine kindness still existed in a world full of deception. Vincent's phone continued ringing persistently as the scammers grew desperate to complete their long-planned heist. Alessandro Romano called 6 more times, followed by increasingly urgent text messages claiming the investment window was closing and other families would lose their opportunity if Vincent delayed. The manipulation was so obvious now that Vincent felt sick thinking about how completely he'd been fooled. But instead of answering, Vincent made a different call. His son David, a criminal attorney in Boston, had been skeptical of the investment from the beginning. "Dad, thank God you called," David said when Vincent explained everything. "I've been researching those names you mentioned. Every single one is connected to an international fraud ring the FBI has been tracking." While Vincent spoke with his son, Lucia quietly coordinated with her friend Isabella at the consulate, who connected them directly with Agent Patricia Williams from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Agent Williams had been investigating this particular group for 8 months, trying to identify their next target. Vincent's cooperation could help them save other victims and finally arrest the criminals. The next hour became a whirlwind of activity that transformed Vincent from victim to hero. Agent Williams explained that they'd been unable to infiltrate the scam ring because the criminals were incredibly careful about their target selection. But Vincent's inside access could help them gather the evidence needed for arrests. Working with federal agents, Vincent agreed to participate in a controlled operation to expose the entire network. That afternoon, with FBI surveillance in place, Vincent called Alessandro back and arranged a final meeting at a downtown hotel. The scammers, confident in their success, brought their entire Chicago operation team to witness what they believed would be their biggest score. When Vincent arrived wearing a wire and accompanied by federal agents, the elaborate con finally collapsed. The arrests were swift and decisive. 7 people were taken into custody, including the woman who'd been posing as a grateful refugee mother and the man who'd pretended to be Alessandro Romano. Seized evidence revealed a sophisticated operation that had stolen over $40 million from elderly Americans across 12 states. If you've been enjoying this story, subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales. As Vincent watched the handcuffs being placed on the criminals who'd nearly destroyed his life, he felt an overwhelming mix of relief, vindication, and gratitude. But the day's surprises weren't over yet. Agent Williams had one more revelation that would add an unexpected twist to this already remarkable story about the power of human kindness and intuition. "Agent," Williams smiled as she approached Vincent and Lucia in the hotel lobby after the arrests. "Mr. Castellano, there's something else you should know," she said warmly. Miss Moretti's tip wasn't just lucky timing. She actually called our fraud hotline 3 weeks ago because she was concerned about an elderly customer she'd overheard talking about suspicious wire transfers. "We've been trying to identify you and warn you, but she only knew your first name and that you came to Nonna's Cafe." Vincent turned to Lucia with amazement and profound gratitude. This remarkable young woman hadn't just saved him in a moment of crisis. She'd been actively trying to protect him for weeks, despite her limited English and fear of getting involved. Her compassion had driven her to contact federal authorities on behalf of a customer she barely knew. The financial recovery was swift and complete. Because the FBI had caught the criminals before any money changed hands, Vincent's accounts remained untouched. But more importantly, the investigation revealed that the scam ring had been planning to target 12 other elderly Americans, including Vincent's neighbor, Harold Goldstein. Lucia's intervention had saved millions of dollars and countless heartbreaks. 3 months later, Vincent did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He hired Lucia as his personal assistant, helping her quit the restaurant job and providing full support for her nursing school tuition. "I spent months looking for the right way to honor Maria's memory through charitable work," Vincent told his family. "I never imagined it would mean helping someone who'd already saved me." Lucia's mother, Elena, was able to visit from Naples for the first time since her daughter's immigration, thanks to Vincent's sponsorship. Watching Elena's tears of joy as she embraced her daughter in Chicago's airport, Vincent felt Maria's presence strongly, knowing his late wife would have approved completely of this unexpected friendship. The story came full circle 6 months later at Lucia's nursing school graduation. Vincent sat in the front row, beaming with pride as she received her degree magna cum laude. In her valedictorian speech, Lucia spoke about the importance of trusting one's instincts and the responsibility to protect vulnerable people, lessons that now guided her chosen profession. Vincent established the Maria Castellano Foundation for Elder Protection, with Lucia serving as its program director after graduation. Together, they created educational workshops about financial scams, specifically targeting immigrant communities who often feel too intimidated to report suspicious activity. Their work has since prevented an estimated $18 million in fraud losses across the Midwest. Today, Vincent and Lucia remain close friends, bound by a moment when courage and kindness converged to prevent catastrophe. Their story proves that sometimes the most profound acts of heroism come not from strangers, but from people who simply care enough to speak up when something feels wrong. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales of human connection and courage. Thank you for joining us on this remarkable journey of trust, intuition, and the beautiful ways that strangers can become family when we're brave enough to help one another.